Right, from one mystic to another. Good to see you, Mighty Mike. It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
All in 2022.
When was the last time we connected? Was it December?
Yeah, I think we did episode 13.
Episode 13. Episode
Right.
13, okay.
Looking at the stars.
Looking
which
at the
people
stars.
really appreciated our episode on astrology.
And that was in December, right?
Yes.
So January, February, March. So we're talking 90 days more or less.
More or less.
We're approaching. We went through a square.
That's right.
We went through a square.
Yeah, that first season, you know, you got to take a break in between seasons, you know? Recharge, rejuvenate.
So okay, that's the best way to do it. So you know how when they change from seasons, you know, sometimes like you go and like it ended and there was a certain place where they were.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it begins the next season 2,
Exactly.
and like they look older and it's like a
Right.
different setting.
Right.
Like that's literally what happened. You would think that this was scripted.
Right, because it's a new setting, new scene. The script is probably going to be new too.
The script is going to be new too. In fact,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about how it's going to be new at the very end of the show. And I'll give a little foreshadowing right now that though we are in Baltimore, we're going to be ending with Pittsburgh.
That's right. That's right. We got to bring you back up on the 40th,
You
man.
got to bring me back on the 40th
Yeah,
parallel.
someone was joking with me. They said you abandoned the 40th.
All right.
You're still on the Susquehanna, but you abandoned the 40th.
All right, I got a question for you. All right. So, like, if you got something which you want to, like a scaffolding, if there's a scaffolding and you want to go and look at it, your job is to make certain that this scaffolding is safe for people to stand on and to walk on and to build things. And you're going to go and inspect it. Like, how do you want to see that scaffolding? What do you want to do? Like, where's the most important things for your eyes to look at?
I would imagine the foundation.
The foundation, and kind of like looking underneath. Kind
Right.
of look, like there's something like, yes, the scaffolding's for up here, but sometimes you go down here to appreciate what's happening. So that's how I'm gonna. That's how I feel about this experience.
Well, I tell you, it feels powerful here.
Okay.
And I just saw, I observed from the outside the timing
Okay.
in terms of you had a real big mission you fulfilled right before you came here. Being invited to speak before certain initiated ones, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so do you think there's any relationship to that, to what brought you here, or?
All right. That's a great question. Thank you for that. The short answer is yes, of course. Of course. How can it not be? Like, it's like when something's self-evident, right? So you can see something, but then there's also, when you're seeing something, it requires a pause before saying that you understand it. You got to understand it, you overstand it to stand upon it. And so I feel like that's how I look at it. Like, I'm still trying to gather what it was. So in a state of uncertainty, but definitely a sense of like awe Like, this is wild. This is a wild story because it was captured. Like, this sort of stuff I suppose happens all the time. But this was done with a record of it for people to watch. So it's kind of interesting. Right. So just to add some specifics to what we've been dancing around, lined up almost perfectly. So I got the invitation. So let's even go before that. It began with a poem sent to my house, typed up poem, written about me in a Masonic folder.
Whoa.
And there was a silver dollar in with it.
Whoa.
And so that came like December, I want to say it was 2019. Like, it was like right before everything kind of started. So it was about to become 2020, and it was the week between Christmas and New Year's. So like nothing really, that's a weird time. If you've ever like really like noticed or been in a place which is affected by that time, like it's a weird space. No one really does anything. It's kind of a holiday. You might go to work. You don't know what to do. So that's when it began, in that liminal space. And I got that weird thing. And it had a Masonic connection, and then that's instantaneously connected to all the stuff on my father's family line.
Wow.
Like that happened like on the same day, like, and because of it, I made a video. I'm like, hey guys, what the heck's this? I just got this. I'm opening it like a reveal, like, And then someone saw that and they're like, hey dude, I thought you'd like to know who your great-grandfather is. Because I don't know who my great-grandfather is. And I've kind of looked. I haven't looked that hard. But I was like, how do you know who my great-grandfather is? Because I kind of looked for my great-grandfather and I didn't find it. Like, there was a part of me that held that energy. But then I was like, well, let me go take a look. Because the guy who said it to me is like, smart guy. I'm like, let me see what this is about. And at first I'm like checking out Ancestry.com. And it sends me down a path. And it's like, it's not the same line. So I'm like, this isn't right. But then I looked at this other place, and then I was like, oh no, there's all of this conflicting information. I found a genealogy that went straight through that guy, and I was able to trace it back to the supposed first Juan to arrive in the colonies.
The first Juan.
Juan, W-A-N-N.
Yes.
All right? But that was, the point I'm trying to make is that was triggered at the same time by this like Masonic sort of letter. So that happens. Like already, like it's like, and I talked about it. 3 months later, I go on the Higher Side Chats, and I talk about that story as like the setup to whatever I was presenting. The very next day, I got another letter from the same person. Whoever sent the first one sent me another one, and it was a bird cage. It was like a gilded bird cage, like solid, really nice, like this big. Like a really thoughtful gift, and was like amazingly wrapped, and there was like poems in that. Like it's all sorts of symbology done spectacularly. Here's where it got really, and it was a poem about the movie The Prestige. And I talk about the movie The Prestige. That arrived on a Friday morning. Thursday was when I did that Higher Side Chat. Okay? And that night, my boys were at my house, and I was like, do you guys want to see a movie? Let's watch a movie. And they're like, yeah, let's watch The Prestige. And so we watched The Prestige that night, and then came a package, and the package was addressed from one of the characters from The Prestige. It was just like a weird sort of, what sort of synchronicity is this? Like there's enough of a randomness to it. Like my son said to get this movie, like how do you back the... It happened right after I talked about it. So that happened. Those two are connected. Then fast forward to November of this past year. It was the November 29th, I think. Maybe it was the 30th. It was one of those 2 days. And my 50th birthday was on December 2nd. Okay, so just a handful of days away from 50. And 50, for whatever number is, like it's got a certain weight to it, at least in our system.
Right, half a century.
So I'm there. So I'm like, okay, what is that? I'm just kind of like looking at that. And then this invitation to go and present findings I started 7 years earlier, you know, to this secretive Freemasonic group, like that presents itself. I'm like, huh, that's kind of weird. And then there just so happened to be a solar eclipse the day after. It was December 3rd, there was a solar eclipse. So there's a solar eclipse at 3 degrees Sagittarius. Or no, I'm sorry, 11 degrees Sagittarius. And my sun's at 10 degrees Sagittarius. So there's a solar eclipse on my sun. On my 50th. So then I'm like, as I get this Freemasonic thing, and then I'm like, okay, here's the date for sometime in January. Like everything was all sort of figured out. Something was all figured out that there was something going on. I had this specific date in January, and it was my 50th birthday, and all sorts of things happened. Like I had a surprise party for the first time, like really surprised me. All the normal holiday sort of stuff. And then right before the presentation, I like looked at the invitation again, and then all of a sudden I see all this sort of stuff in it, like stuff I hadn't seen before. I was like, this is exactly 57 days before, like from the day of the invitation to the day of the what's it called, and it's at this key location. It ties into like the Kobe Bryant ritual. Like all this stuff like is lining up perfectly.
You did an episode on that, right?
I did an episode on all of this.
Right.
Like all of this, like those are individual pieces, but there's a larger arc. There's a larger arc. All right. And so there's like talk, conjecture of like, what would this be? Mike, are you going to be humanly sacrificed? I didn't really think I was going to be, but like, was that in my mind? Well, certainly.
Right.
It was
of course, you would have some anxiety, like some secretive society picks you to come and present to them. Like that's rare, and I mean, it would raise all kinds of questions.
And in the world which we play in, like there's a boogeyman, right? There's a boogeyman, and this was the boogeyman, and there's this dance between like how much is it how strong is the boogeyman? It's kind of like the dance, and so like. That was the internal feeling. Like, what is that? Like, where do I stand with this? Like, that's kind of like how I met it, but it was in concert with just like the normal stuff of like turning 50. Like we were talking about that. Like, it was a transition. Like I was in a different sort of space. We've got 2 years under our belts, like over 700 days, 1,000 days, I don't even know. Like the world has been in this, you know how I describe that period between Christmas and New Year's where it's just like, it's kind of working, but it's not falling apart, but like, is it open, is it not open? Like that's what the past 2 years have been. Like in a grander scheme, like what really was happening there? So anyway, all this is happening. I go from all these sort of extremes, and I'm like, all right, like this is an initiation. You're not initiating me into your group, but you're witnessing me. And I'm like, and that felt harmoniously right. I'm like, that felt true. This felt true, so I go and I do that. I'm gonna cut like the details. But in a very short order of time, like things kind of flipped upside down for me, right? And I found myself in this location right here. Like this location, I had no idea. I had no idea that this existed. The person who is the energy behind it, like I met him once. Like I did a session with him. I've done lots of sessions, and like I like everyone who I connect with. But it was like, but I knew he did something with houses. And I was like, hey, here's my situation. I just need to have some place to land. Like really, really quickly. He's like, no problem. And so this house presented itself. And it's very ironic because it's these extremes. It's like on a certain level, it's the most perfect thing in the world, but it comes with a little bit of a price tag. Like it's a beautiful house with these amazing views, but there's no heat. Like, oh, it's in the middle of winter. What's that like? Well, it's cold. Well, what about like cooking? Well, that runs on heat, so there's no cooking. Well, what about water? Well, if it's cold enough, we turn off the water because it's so cold that we don't want the water pipes to freeze. So there's sometimes there's no water. There's no running water. When it's really cold, there's no running water. And then you become acclimated to it. I'm like, okay, like there's this one view of this is scripted. Like how did I get that letter the day after?
Right.
How did this happen to be right here?
Right.
How is this I didn't want to, like, I have a whole episode where I'm saying I don't want to go to Baltimore. Well, I don't want to go to Baltimore because for whatever reason I want to go to Baltimore. But my mother and my father both grew up in Baltimore.
Wow.
In fact, this house, which is random in my life, is less than 1 mile from where my mother grew up. Baltimore is a very big city.
Amazing. And what part of Baltimore is this? Tell us where we are. Where are we?
So this is called Gwynns Falls. This is Gwynns Falls. So this is I haven't made this video yet, so this is a little bit of a foreshadow. So we are in the middle of something called Leakin Park. Okay, like Leakin. Leakin. And so, like, for wordplay, like Leakin has another connotation to me. Does that have another connotation to you?
It has several connotations.
All right, what are some of the connotations?
Leaking, like you dripping oil.
Right.
You know, your vital essences
Yes.
slipping out, you know?
Yes.
Or like you're leaking secrets. You know, you're like, can't nobody tell you nothing if they don't want others to know, because you're going to leak it out.
Like, and there's a negative connotation, because if someone's saying that, they care about that secret, so they care that you're leaking it. Right. So like there's a twang to it, which is like, and just like if I'm leaking my essential oils or my essential essence.
Right.
Like, you know, there's like so yeah, like I always think of leaking as like blood. Like if someone's leaking, like they've been cut or they're stabbed, or like it's like you're leaking.
Right.
But none of it, like it's been named. So Leakin Park is also known as the Baltimore's largest unregistered graveyard.
Dang.
Right?
And that's why, because they dropped so many bodies in here?
Yes. So this is one of the largest wooded parks in any city in North America. I think
this rivals the Wissahickon, huh?
This is. Do you know how big the Wissahickon is? It's probably on par.
Huh.
Like, this is 1,200 acres of just like natural woodland with like some parks and some small stuff done to it. But for the most part, it's the way it is.
Okay.
Okay. So this has been named Leakin, and there's a whole story for like why it's Leakin, because like Dr. Leakin came in and he gave some money, and like so we named it after him. Like, regardless, like it's got kind of a negative connotation, a relatively like modern one. And Baltimore like they called it America's greatest city. And at one point there was no irony with that. Like, that was self-evident. And so the question is like, well,
what happened? Yeah.
What does that even look like? Like right now, I can't imagine. Like, I mean, you could kind of remember like when New York was called that, and that's got a certain feel. But this is before the Industrial Revolution, what they call the Industrial Revolution. At that point, Baltimore was a great city, and so Baltimore has kind of, you know, it has fallen very far rather quickly, if you want to look at a timeline. And like this also, like if you go and you look at the spell work, like, you know, this is, but in the most literal sense. So it is the crown jewel. You've got an urban, regardless of the quality of the urban, but you've got an urban environment, a hierarchical, artificial environment where people are living, and then there's like a recognition of like the natural energy of the land. That's the park. Like, that's the truth to like urbans and parks. This is Baltimore's crown jewel. This is their biggest connection to a natural world. Right,
because you said that Leakin Park is more pivotal to Baltimore's design than even the harbor. Am I correct?
Scotty said that.
Okay.
And Scotty would know. He's the guy who's behind this.
Right.
So it's like things are self-evident. Like, when I listen to Scotty, I'm like, he brings with a knowledge of Baltimore on a deeper level. I've seen it demonstrated 3 times by him. He is able to find the jewel in something people don't see. Like, this house, and like what he brought here, like no one else would ever see that, like what it looked like prior to him putting his hands. He's got a little houseboat in the inner in Fells Point, which is part of Baltimore. It's the harbor, and it literally is the best view within any of the other like piers that are all around. You're like, wow, if there was like a best view of everything around, like somehow he found that like in a way which he can afford. Like it's like, oh, it's actually nothing. This is pittance. They're like giving this away, and he like angled himself in. So the point I'm trying to make is he has an eye which like naturally draws to like something of like of a pure, like we can measure it in a way, and we measure it by like an objectable truth of beauty. Like when you see something like, yeah, this is a spot. So I'm just painting that whole picture because it's with that context, because usually I don't take people on their word, but if I do, this is why I take them on their word, because of that.
Proofs in pudding.
Right, proofs in the pudding, exactly. Right. So that guy says, he's like, yeah, this falls, this energetic falls in general, which goes through this what's been named as Leakin Park, which has been named as Crimea. You know, it's at some point had other names, at some point it has no name. But like this area, like the energy of any place is influenced by its natural architecture. And the natural architecture in Baltimore is this immense natural harbor. Like there's something very unique and special about how it comes together. And that is self-evident. But this is the energy, like these smaller, what they're calling falls, which lead into that. Like it fuels it. And then this goes into the Chesapeake Bay, which is part of the Susquehanna.
Right.
So that's our region.
Well, I have to say, definitely has a mystic feel here. And rejuvenating, recharging, you know. I rested here last night. I spent the night here with y'all in Leakin Park, and yeah, I woke up relaxed, refreshed, recharged, rejuvenated, you know.
Yeah.
And the nature is amazing. It seems very responsive. The birds, and yeah, it's an interesting place to find yourself at the beginning of 2022, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's and that's becoming self-evident for me, because people are coming. And it's kind of a commitment to come here, right? It's like, all right, I'm gonna have to go and get off the highway. Like I got to go and drive in, or like whatever. Like, you know, like Baltimore has, like Baltimore in some ways is like a phenomenal city, but it's got like kind of like a stench to it, and that keeps away people who don't want to deal with the stench. But when you don't, there's something like, you know, think about the things that have really strong natural aroma. Some people can't handle it.
Right.
But if you can handle it, there's a richness.
Right.
So like there's a truth to that. Come in here. There's like, you know, there's a price which you're paying, like with your time. And so there's also like a counterbalance reward. And you find this, and it's literal, and people are like, I mean, the truth is, it's the second time is when I really see it, when someone comes a second time, because the first time is novel. It's like, all right, what's going on here? Because it's unusual. And then the second time you realize, like, oh, this is foundation, this is bedrock. This is the way natural human lived. Like this was his normal. God, I'm at ease with normal. Like that's literally what's happening. In the midst of it all, I can find that normal.
Yes.
That's a truth. And you feel it in a very, like, exactly how you are.
Right. So do you miss the 40th?
Like you can't imagine.
Like
you can't imagine. So when I first got here, like I've been here for 6 weeks. And I've been going back to the 40th. Once a week. I did a big trip down to Florida. But I've been going to the 40th like on a regular basis. And at first there was a sensation of like really enjoying the break away from the 40th. Like I was like, okay, now I'm coming back here, and I'm like, let me come back here. And it feels like the switch has happened. Like from here, like if you let the hand, like it's this movement. And so what I mean by that is like, the last time I was up at the 40th, I was like, I really miss it. And the opening of spring, like yesterday I saw my first bloom. My perspective, my perspective on reality has had to change. Like, not because I went through an initiation, but the timing of life has put me in such a way that my relationship changed. And because of that, everything changed. I care about the sun in a way like you only do if you don't live in controlled, climated housing. Like where you got some degree of what the temperature is. And when you don't, you're very aware of what
the sun is doing.
Because like the sun, like when it's out, like it could be 35 degrees outside, but the way the house is oriented, like not only is this place like special, but the house is special as well on many, many levels. And it's oriented in such a way that it breathes with the environment. It like literally breathes with the environment, and as it happens, like the house naturally warms up, like in a very natural, literal way. And you can, by just opening and shutting windows, like you can hold the heat in, like when the sun goes down, and you're fully aware of all of this sort of stuff. Like that's practical. But it's unbelievably beautiful too. Like when you stop and think, like, well, what am I doing? Like I'm living, like my sustenance in a certain way. And when it's 35 degrees, like the way the house is situated, you're like, this feels so warm. Like it says it's 35 degrees, but the skin on my body, and I don't have a warm house to go into. In fact, this is the warmest I feel. And you start just taking off your shirt. And you're like, this feels so good. And I'm like, the neighbors are staring at the crazy white dude with no shirt on, sitting out in the 35-degree sun. And it's like, I'm just laughing at myself because this whole experience is an ironic, perfect laugh. Like everything is coming together beautifully, and there's like this, when you can sense it, like it's all you can do is laugh. Like everything from like the people and the setting and the activities and it's I don't know, that's what I see from my perspective. And I can't tell you, like, you know, it's the first moment I sat down, the first moment I sat in that seat, I said, and Scotty, it was February the 2nd. I sit down and it was like cold as can be, and Scotty's there, and I'm really meeting him for the first time, and I was like, Roz is gonna flip when he sees this place.
Yeah, you were excited to get me down here. I'm looking at I think it's a turkey buzzard.
Yeah. I see 4 of them just circling around us right now.
Oh, there's 4?
I can see one over there. I saw one over there, the one behind me.
Yeah, and it's circling right above us.
Yeah, like there's something which is pulling down. In fact, that's one of so you sit up there, and occasionally you see people walk. And occasionally you see people walk. And occasionally I see the foxes. So I see the foxes, I see the deer. And I could just make this sound. That level from all the way up there, and the foxes always stop. And so that's been a big part of it. And then the birds. You saw last night there's this bamboo forest which bumps up against the covered porch, and there's an aviary? Is that the word I want to say? Like it's like there's 1,000 birds in there, and they're singing.
Yeah.
And we're high up, and we see the birds fly around. We saw the eagle this morning. Yeah.
I didn't see him.
Oh, you didn't see it?
Yeah, I heard about him.
Ah, I thought you were down with me when the eagle flew over, but yeah, the natural life here has been spectacular. And you can see the green is just starting to pop up. Like the next time you see this, I imagine it's going to be much hotter.
Yes.
And much greener.
Yes. So, you're in a different setting. 2022 seems like it's going to be a very different year, but you've been reflecting a lot on 2021 because that was where we got our 12 episodes in, you know?
Wow.
Or 13 episodes, actually.
Was it 13?
13 episodes, 1 year.
1 year. 1 year.
Yeah, man. So, What's your reflections on when we look back on season 1 of From the 40th Parallel? What's your thoughts? What's your feelings?
All right. So this ties in, like you like it ties into this whole story. Like I painted it from like the Freemason to here, but there's another storyline where it merges. This is true for all of us. We can see these different storylines and how they align in the primary story. So okay. So the very first time we met face to face was, and I'm having trouble with the timeline if this happened before we recorded or not, but it was at the Wissahickon tour, and I want to say it was April.
I want to say it was April.
It was April of last year, so we're at almost a full solar cycle. We're at almost a full solar cycle, and it was cold, and I rode down with Jesse, and there was like there was a tension in the air. We were talking about he and I always like to talk about unsolved mysteries, and there was an unsolved mystery, like, oh wow, we met was with the unsolved mystery, but this is a freaky mystery, and it deals with Baltimore, and I'm not going to get into it, but that was where we met, and so like that set the flavor of that first meeting. And then we went to the cave. We had like such a rich experience of the opening of the door at the I Am Temple, and then the shared learning at that field out after we did that, and then we actually went
the monastery stables.
Yes, at the monastery stables, and then we went and made our way to Kelpius's cave. And I remember having this great time. I was like everyone was just like, there's so many different people, and everyone like had a commonality that all they wanted to do was find that commonality with the other person, because hey, we're all here.
Yes.
And there's something which
something brought you here.
Yeah, it's like I could go and see all these ways which were different, but no one did that, because that's what culture is trying to do right now to everyone, is like focus on that. And there was this quality which, like, out of all of this madness, like, this is the truth to me, and like it's the truth to you too. And everyone built their understanding of each other that way. And that was this beautiful day. And then we get to the cave, and I was like, I can't go in that. I can't go. Like, there was something inside of me. It's like, I'm not going in.
I usually don't go in either, to be honest. You know, or if I go in, I burn a lot of sage and frankincense at the door before I go in.
Right.
Sad to say, Kelp's Cave, all kinds of mayhem and fuckery be going on in there now, man.
And like the whole day, like we're flirting with that line. We're flirting with
the I Am Temple.
The I Am Temple.
That shit was wild.
You like literally gave you're like, listen, I'm gonna speak for 20 minutes because you guys have no idea how many times I've been to this place. Like, you just set that up. You just told that story, like, just regardless. And the purpose was like, this is how you want to hold your energy when you take this walk.
Right.
Like, and this is what to look for, and this is the context. So it's not just a walk through the house. Like, you have to pay attention. Like, you spelled that out for us. So everyone's like, okay, we're going to take the walk. And like Ma said, this is how we take the walk. Everyone's like really ready. And they're like standing for the house, and they're looking, and then the door opens up, and everyone's like,
right.
Ross said the door. No one. He's never seen anyone. He's never seen anyone.
Never.
And they come running down the hill. And it was Jesse. And he goes. He's like, they came out and they want to meet you. And you're like, I'm not going to meet them.
Right. Yeah, that was a wild scene.
It was wild. And then we came up and we met him. And there was that moment where we were all just kind of standing out, and like we were just kind of in each other's presence. And we came down. Like, that was part of the energy of the day. Like, that's like an uncommon sort of event. But like, that first meeting is what this energy was about. Like, you know, everything like that.
Yes.
And so I knew how I knew the quality of that energy a little bit. Like, Jesse and I were talking about the unsolved mystery and the Kelpius and the guy showing out. So like, and the nature of the mystery around the 40th parallel and our meeting, because I knew of you before that. Like, you know, so there was like a build up to this. So I came out of that first sense with that understanding of the nature of our relationship. That's what I knew. Like, I was like, I don't know what it is. Like, I certainly have like ideas of like, oh, this is what we're doing, but I knew there was something very like not it was that strong. And I remember I picked a card. I picked a card specifically for the meeting. I sat with you. I gave you a stick, correct?
Yes.
I sat with 3 possibilities of what I would give you for about an hour. Like, I was like, there was going to be that stick, there was something else, and there was something else. And I was like, which is Roz's? Which is like that was the level which I came to that meeting even before all of that. And so I brought the stick and I had a card, and I was like, what's the card? What's the card? The energy. And the same card I picked that day is the same card I picked yesterday to mark the quarter moon. And so there's a continuity.
Yes.
Between the beginning to like where we are at this exact moment, which is the beginning of episode 2 or season 2, excuse me.
Yes. I tell you, when I reflect back on that first season, first I want to say, man, the feedback that I've been getting, you know, is very affirming. People really appreciate these works, and we're articulating things people have been feeling and sensing, you know, that are familiar with these regions, familiar with the 40th parallel. And it's like they've been feeling this, sensing it, but they couldn't put no words to it. And yeah, the feedback I've been getting has been inspiring for us to continue.
Right.
You know, when we are absent for a month or so, people are like, "What's up?" You know, so that's affirming. And I have to say, when I came out to Lancaster and did the rites of the 40th parallel, well, at least visited the sites. I didn't actually go through the rites, but man, it was transformational for me on a lot of levels, particularly High Point and the kiln,
the furnace.
The furnace, yeah, those areas, man. And I want to make sure we get back out there in this season. We got, you know, I feel like we only touched the surface.
We just touched the surface.
Yeah. Ephrata was interesting.
Let's stay at the day you came out, because I forgot about that. Like, that was spontaneous. I was gonna show you some places, and you came out with Tyson.
Yes.
And Jesse was there, and we went in the city, and Tyson was like, and he drove.
Right.
And he drove because I didn't have a car which could take everyone, and it was like, it became this day. It became this day which culminated. And who was the elder? What was
Allah Lasui.
Oh, yes.
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 My honored elder, yes.
Yes. And we went to the rocks. And like, as soon as you saw those rocks, you were like, I mean, these rocks are awesome, but like, you were like, wow, this is something special. This is something special. We stayed there, and then we went to the furnace, and then from there we went to High Top, and that was High Top, to High Point. High Point, and it was like the sun went down. That was a really, really important day.
Yes.
Right, and it felt like a build up. That was a really special day for everyone.
Yes. And even how, in doing research about East Falls, which is a part of Germantown in Philly, and reading the description, like, you can't see the falls now.
Okay.
Because they dammed the Schuylkill Hills, so the water level has risen above the falls. But when you read the description of the falls, it's just like those rock formations we visited on the Schuylkill.
Okay.
Where it's described as being like a resort.
Right.
And a place of fun and frolic. And
right.
Like, that's what, when you took us to those rock formations, that's what you said. This was an ancient, natural resort.
Yeah. 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 Like it was like carved out for humans to lie in.
Yes.
Like you go and you look at this, so like there's no other way. It's yes.
Yeah, and that being like the way the one at East Falls was just described in history, like this was the capital, this was the seat of Lenapehokin's authority, right here at this paradisical fall, which is now on the Schuylkill River. At that time it was the Manayunk River, you know. Yeah, amazing. And it showed, for me, it showed the continuity of that land up there, you know, that you could read a historical description of something in Philadelphia and actually see it in Lancaster. You know?
Right.
Like that's
right.
That's mystic.
Right, right.
You know?
Like it's built into the fabric for you to discover it and then to go have a place to go and see for yourself. Like it doesn't remain in abstract.
Exactly. So
that's one of the things I think about, that part of the road which would take you from the exact 40th parallel to that bridge we crossed over to cross the Susquehanna, and then we came back down to High Point.
Yes.
Like that road is like I'm very familiar with, and it is a I forgot where I was going to go with it. I was going to go somewhere with it. It just escaped me.
Okay. Well, when it comes forward, no worries, you know. But I was going to mention Ephrata too. That Ephrata leg.
At Andre's place?
Yeah, to be invited by the Fries, custodians of land for 10 generations, and to actually have a Bible made at the Ephrata cloister, and you know, for them to open up their space and share that with us.
Do you remember the story of the grandfather tree?
No.
That's what. Well, okay. So what was your biggest takeaway from the Ephrata experience? Like, if it'd be like one. What?
Like I said, just the Fries.
The Fries.
You know, that family.
Right. To be able to go and see, like, yeah, I could go to Ephrata Cloister anytime, but I got to go in and like part of like an actual living
history.
Living
man.
history.
Their family was living history.
Their family was living history. Yeah. So my biggest memory. So one, when we walked around the graveyard of the Ephrata Cloister, when we listened to their history, and all of us look at each other across the room and give each other that look. Like every time you hear like a history story, you're like, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And like everyone like kind of like catches eyes. There were like 10 of us.
Right.
And then so after that, we then go walk around the graveyard, and now we're just like poking apart, like, what's that skull and crossbones? Like, that hole shouldn't be there. Like, it was like because we kind of like saw through that, but we were in this space where like there was something important. But so that was the memory. But the story I've told the most, I tell this story a lot, I think about it a lot, was Andre told me about the grandfather tree. He's like, yeah, we got another piece of property, and there's a grandfather tree there. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to tell the grandfather tree?
You can
okay,
yeah.
All right. So I was like, as soon as I hear him say that, I'm like, I have an immediate sense of what it is. Like, I'm like, all right, I want to, like I know what a grandfather tree is, but at the same time, it's like, I want him to, I'm not going to tell him what a grandfather tree is. I want to hear how you know grandfather tree. And I want to, that. So I'm like, well, what's a grandfather tree? And so Andre says, he's like, this is family information. This is living history, living family history. So going back in their family lineage to the point where they own the land. right? Like, so they were the Fry family, and they were deeded the land, and the land would have like a large amount of acreage. There were people who lived on that land. Like, just because you deeded the land didn't mean they would go and say, like, there was once a point like that didn't. The association we have right now was not part of the interplay between people. And so the people who lived on the land which he deeded, like wherever that family overlap takes place, like they would share information and know each other or what have you. And so it was from those relationships that the grandfather tree was identified. Okay? So this is family knowledge of whoever the people, like, you know, they would probably see themselves more as family because we're sharing space together, and there was not a competitive dynamic. There was a difference, but there was like a non-competition in ways of looking at one another. So that's why they would pass on this information. So this is what a grandfather tree is. Andre was not able to tell me, like, perhaps what it does, but he could explain, like, kind of what it is. And he said there's one grandfather tree per 2,000 square acres. Maybe 200 square miles. It was a large point. Those are two very different numbers. But it was a tree. It was a tree that holds influence. That it holds that large of a area.
As far as the tree kingdom, it holds dominion of that region.
Yes, and the tree kingdom is then what more or less, like, that's a major kingdom when you see within this grander kingdom.
Right.
Like, you see everything there are two things. You see everything, and I guess this is more of a nature of that kingdom, is you see that the tree does not have to take from something else to exist, right? Like, it's not like it's different than an animal, and it has a living permanence. So it's like it's not in competition with anything.
Right.
Everything is in harmony, and it exists that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are some highlights for me of 2021. I think we set a high bar for ourselves for this season, man.
Well, it left with that cliffhanger, right? So, like, we go through that whole sort of thing, and then the cliffhanger is like, what happened to Uncle Mike? You know, we go and we do that, and then we, like, you know, this is the first episode back. Like, we're here. So, I mean, this is very funny. What probably will make sense for the next episode is going to be us in Pittsburgh, right?
It is the next episode.
So let's go talk a little bit, like, explain how that came about.
Well, we got to bring you back up to the 40th.
You got to bring me back to the 40th.
Yeah.
That will definitely happen. I am going to...
Pittsburgh is on the 40th.
Yo, Pittsburgh is totally on the 40th.
So the long and the short, Good Brothers in Pittsburgh was inspired by our work last season. Brother Kufu and Brother John. And we sparked something in them. Decode Pittsburgh. And so April 23rd and 24th, Mystics of the 40th Parallel, we converging in Pittsburgh. We're going to be decoding Pittsburgh. We're going to tour 2 days. We're going to do a tour of certain areas. Like the 23rd will be the downtown Pittsburgh. And then we're going to have a reasoning presentation where we're looking at the bloodlines of Pittsburgh, right? Them Carnegies and all them boys. Name some names. Then the next day, we're going up to the highest point in Pittsburgh, which is the observatory, and tour that area, and then have another reasoning where we kind of look at the geomancy and geology, geometrics of the place where four rivers meet. You know, the portal from the east to the west as far as the Alleghenies and Appalachia is concerned. So there's a lot, like how you was talking about Baltimore, and that it's, the bedrock of Baltimore is this natural order here. We're going to kind of look at Pittsburgh the same way.
So the first thing is, and I guess I didn't mention this in recapping the first year, was I was surprised to see how this resonated with people. I wasn't shocked, but I guess I was, I can understand why, but I was still one of those things. I was like, oh, wow. And so the point I want to make is, like, this is much them. Like, it's that kind of, like, energy, and I think that's what we're kind of exploring right now. And this season 2 is starting to spill over to where those two worlds meet. Like, maybe, like, where you and I are separate, and, like, and the person is a witness of that. But now it's like we're gonna be witnessing their work.
Well, if you remember, towards the end of the season last year, we had put it out to people.
Okay.
Yo.
Right.
What we're doing, this is
right.
the template.
Right.
Replicate this in your area, in your city. And if you need some help, if you want us to participate, reach out.
We said that?
Yeah, we said that. You don't remember?
I don't remember much, but you know what? We really were thinking, weren't we?
Yeah, so I see that these brothers doing their work in Pittsburgh,
right.
inviting us to be
right.
a part of it.
Right.
As growing out of that. And I think what we do in Pittsburgh will be a even more detailed template for ones.
Right.
Hopefully inspire others.
Right.
To, like, hey, let's invite them out here. I'm gonna do because that's the thing though. Kufu and John, man, they've done their legwork. They've done their homework.
Right.
They're not just wanting us to come and do it for them.
Right.
Like, man, I'm excited.
Right.
The work that they shared with me.
Right.
To be honest, I thought they had purchased Free Your Mound and Your Mind Will Follow. The detail in which they've been decoding the city.
Right.
And in talking with them, they just been inspired from our episodes of Mystics from the 40th.
Right.
And we did have Hood Mystic on.
Right, we did have Hood Mystic.
Who kind of set that example for in Ohio.
In Columbus.
Yeah. So, man, they're on it. So, I think what we do in Pittsburgh is going to inspire others.
That's what I would imagine. Decode
where they are, and then maybe even bring us out and we have an event around.
Well, that's what I think it's going to inspire others to do, because I think undoubtedly other people have done it in their place.
Yeah.
So it's going to inspire them to reach out to us.
Yeah.
That's what's going to inspire them to do. Maybe someone else would go and maybe look at something new. I've heard from quite a few people from Pittsburgh over the past couple of years, wanting me to look at, like, their river system and their stuff, like, totally outside of this. Primarily because when you look at Pennsylvania, like, it's very well known that Pittsburgh has a strong native history.
Yes.
And from that, there are very well-known, more easily accessed known spots. But that was an epicenter. And then we could also see, like, its role with, like, coal and some other, like, natural sort of things. I'm very curious to look at it from that level as well. Like, I want to bring that and maybe bring a little bit to see if I can identify, like, some areas which would have more of what I call the rights of the 40th parallel. Like, what's the Pittsburgh equivalent? What's the Pittsburgh version? Like, it wouldn't be that. It would be something else.
Absolutely.
What it does have is a 40th parallel.
Yes.
Like, there's something like, that's the nice thing is like as a magnetic field which we are riding, right? That's what the 40th parallel is, which we're using right now. Like, whoever that resonates with, like, that's our point of reference, and it hits a lot of people.
Yes.
In a lot of different ways.
Yes. I'm excited.
I am too.
Hey, and we're mentioning it because come and be a part of it. Come and be a part of this experience, you know? Like, we're going to have something in the description of this video, or I'm even going to edit into this the details on how you can be a part of it. I think one day is $44. The whole weekend is $77, which that includes the walking tour and presentations of each day, you know? So I think that's a great value. And
will people get to meet and greet you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great value.
Absolutely. And you as well, you know? Plus these brothers, again, Brother Kufu and Brother John, who is setting the example of how to decode these cities, break the spells of the monuments and statues, identify the natural.
We unlocked this in Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Did we not talk about Baltimore? Is this not a?
We sure enough did.
We
That's
sure
funny.
enough did, right? Like, think about that.
Yes.
All right, so let's go unlock some more stuff.
Yes.
We're on the case.
Yes.
We're on the
I see
case.
the sun is coming out. I'm thankful. It was a little chilly this dawning. You know, we rose up early to share this with y'all.
Like, it's legitimate. There's no heat in there. It was warm last night.
Yeah, I was very comfortable.
Well, in the room, but like the rest of the house, like we keep the doors open like in the middle of winter. Like, I guess now it's spring. Like,
yes. Yeah, so great. You got any closing thoughts?
Well, I had thought about this like season 2 and this being the kickoff. I'm happy to tell everyone that season 2 is on, and I am excited to see it unfold.
Yes. Well, I am going to put this charge on you, man.
What?
I mean, you're here, and Gwynns Falls is cool, but right, I know there's Druid Hill Park.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a whole lot here.
There's a whole lot here.
Baltimore.
Yes.
So next time I come forward, we got to hit some spots, man.
Fair enough.
It's not going to just be, you know.
Fair
I'm going to want to chill here.
Right. Right.
You know, burn a spliff, free up in the woods, but I want to explore the rest of Baltimore too.
All right.
You know,
All
so
right.
that's got to be one episode this season.
Okay.
You know?
All right. All right.
All right.
All right, that's fair. That's it. We're gonna have a Baltimore episode. We're gonna have this Pittsburgh one. We're gonna have another one in Lancaster. I gotta have another one in Philadelphia.
Yes. Yes. Well, I am, speaking of Philly, I should mention that I am going to continue to work with Wissahickon Wellness.
Okay.
And we are going to do another series of the Wissahickon Wellness Walks. I don't have the dates yet. We haven't firmed up the details.
Right.
But probably May and June.
Right.
We'll probably do 4 walks between the months of May and June.
Right. Right. So you definitely don't want to miss those. And you know what I'm doing? For the first time ever, I'm organizing a bunch of walks on the Susquehanna.
Wow.
So this first time, like, I've always wanted to do it, but when it came down to it, like when spring would begin and it would come to like, oh, do you want to go do it? I would never do it. And then I would just do walks on like if someone were to go and book a private tour, and I do a lot of those. But this year's different. It's the first time. Once a month, I'm going to do a different walk of the 4 rites.
Wow.
And
we got to be a part of that, man.
So there's going to be that, and so we could do that. I could still do private walks.
Maybe we could even line it up. They're alternate weekends if you're going to run them in
right,
May and June.
Right.
So ones could do the Wissahickon Wellness
Right.
one weekend.
Well,
and we
I'll give
meet
you
up-
the dates to make certain that they don't overlap. That I don't.
Oh,
that
you
we're
got
not,
your dates locked
No,
in.
mine are out. Mine are out.
All right.
Like, this is the first time I've done it.
Oh yeah, well that's why I don't have my dates yet.
So
'Cause
all
I
of
gotta-
mine are on Sundays.
Yours are on Sundays, all
Right.
right. Well, I don't think mine will be on Sundays, but
All right.
I'm still going to build around yours.
Right.
So
All right.
Either way.
So that sounds good. So we'll do some of those. And then I would like to go and do some other places
Oh, absolutely.
on the 40th.
On the 40th, yeah. We got to hit Ohio, man.
So at some point that's going to open up, like for how
Yeah.
Pittsburgh did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, you in Ohio? Line it up.
How
Get
about
in
this?
touch.
Between Pittsburgh and Boulder, because those
Yeah.
are the points we have on the map right now. We need something in between.
Something in between.
Something in between. Probably closer east would be preferred.
Maybe even like what's on the Mississippi at the 40th?
Is that St. Louis?
I thought St. Louis is 38. I think St. Louis is the 38th parallel.
What's Missouri's? But
Cahokia is what's close to St. Louis.
right. That it is.
Yeah. But go ahead, were you asking?
I don't recall. So okay, so we've got we're gonna do other episodes at other places on the 40th if we could find a place.
Yes. Well, our audience is going to make those
Yeah, the
decisions
audience.
for
So
us,
like
'cause
at this moment of this recording, we're waiting for that. We're waiting
that's
to
right.
discover
We're waiting
that.
for y'all.
We're waiting
Bring us
to
out.
discover that. So so this is it. We've got like the topic. We've got the topic. And last year, like I was like the undercurrent, like, you know, and then it peaked with my cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not putting any pressure on. There's going to be another cliffhanger this year. Maybe it's with Roz. Maybe there's another character.
Right.
Like it's usually like in the second or third episode you get new characters too.
That's right.
There's like a lot of things. There's
Well, I'm going to tell you, the way John and Khufu are doing their research, that is going to be an ongoing thing with them. This
Wow.
is not going to be a one and done. Because it's going to be so much to build on what they have. Because from the little bit that they shared, Pittsburgh seems like the best case study as far as what we spell out in Free Your Mind and Your Mind Will Follow than anything I've seen, where they actually have plaques saying, yeah, this cemetery was built on a
Wow.
Native American tumulus. There were 4,000 Native Americans buried here in an area about the size of a city block. And oh man, it has so much tangible evidence of things that we have been, floating and
All right.
building intangible evidence around.
All
They
right.
got it like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So that's very exciting. I like you. I'm a if there's a historical marker, you stop and you look at it.
Right.
Very much so, and then you think about what else is this pointing to?
So I'm just saying that to say they might be the additional characters. On
Right.
board, you know?
Without a doubt, and I'm so excited to meet them both, and you may be right because it's going to show itself with effortless action. So I'm about to go and introduce something. Like we're kind of talking about a wrap up, but you brought something to which I forgot to bring to your attention. So we're just going to kind of play with this. So for those people who are still watching right now, they're getting a treat.
All right.
Okay. All right. So this was sent to me by a friend of mine, and I think it may be the only thing I watched prior to gaining internet access in this house on YouTube. It was I watched it, and it was a 90-minute documentary from the perspective of the rise and fall of the Aztec culture. Okay. On one level, it was very, very well done. On another level, it was in perfect harmony with mainstream scientific and historical thinking. Okay, so like you take that in concert. So okay,
right. The
and
historical narrative.
The historical narrative, and they told it in a way which was new to me, or with greater detail and with a chronology, and they took it out of context. They put it in context of the growth of the Aztec civilization and less about the other great civilizations. They talked about the Toltec, no mention of the Olmec, talked about the Mayan. So this is the point of all of this. So it tells the story primarily of the fall of the Aztec people, and interwoven in this story. And the story is like, hey, this story may not be accurate, but it's the best we have. Like, it takes that perspective, but it still is part of, like, mainstream history. Like, you see all the other things. So they say that the Aztec, like, they were, their nomadic roots are where their aggressive behavior became from. And their aggressive behavior came from, it was the only way they can gain their independence from this other guy who was more aggressive than they were. Like they had to do the revolution. They're like, yes, they became the most aggressor, but they did that to stand up to this other guy because their previous king was a very gentle king and he was taken advantage of from the more aggressor.
Wow.
And so during the switch of that being maybe a pure motivation to the story of the bloodlust and the human sacrifice, which seemingly occurred, that happened. There's a story, there's a transition. So I don't really know that story very well, and this told that story. And the person who they described as the advisor behind the scenes of the last, he was the advisor to 5 kings. He was often offered to be the king, but always turned it down. And this was the guy who kind of set up the diabolical plan of capturing people and sacrificing them. Was the high priest. He was more or less the high priest, and his name was Tlaquiel, which is the exact same name of
the mystic that came to visit you, right?
Correct.
Wow.
And so there are a lot of ways to sit with that, but like sitting with that in its most authentic spaces, like listening to like what the truth is. There's this story about this. There's this story which I know from this, and these are the connections, like whatever they may or may not be. And that happened recently.
Wow.
So there's that, and I also have another good friend who I hope to get to his house and do some filming there, and that might be a place where we do an episode. He was telling me how he does native plant teachings and identifications, and he does it very well. And he was doing it, as he described it, as for the Lenape people of, I forget where in Delaware. So we had plans. He's like, oh, I'm doing a plant walk for the Lenape people in Delaware, but he has a connection in a certain way. Like he's the guy who's teaching them right now. I think that might be something of interest too.
Sounds good, bro. We're gonna have a great year.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so hey, come to Pittsburgh, meet us live and direct, be a part of that experience. If you've already got the science on where you are, get in touch with us. We'll come and have an event there with y'all.
You just gotta put it on.
Yeah, that's what we inspired to do this year. So yeah, nature's giving us signs. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So we're gonna do it.
If you're around Baltimore, you could come down here as well. Reach out to me.
All right.
All right.
From one mystic to another, bro.
Salute.